We can name her biggest hits back to front, but it turns out Linda Ronstadt's music is one of her biggest ways of telling us who she really is.
Linda could literally sing anything.
But she had to be stubborn and determined every step of the way to build the music career that she wanted.
I just went, what? That's, it's that solo. I thought, God, what? I was appalled.
Linda's described herself as uncompromising. So how did this show up in every area of her life, from work to love to parenting?
Sometimes we would disagree about who would sing lead, because I always wanted Dolly to sing lead on everything. We go, oh, well, Dolly will sound great on that.
And how did a major identity crisis make this attitude necessary in the first place?
When the mariachi got up on stage with their big hats, the place fell out. They went nuts. There was such a thing of pride.
Why is food such a bittersweet topic for her? And how has this all helped her prepare for the worst news imaginable? Welcome to Do You Remember? I am your host, Nostalgic Nick, with all these answers and more. And stay to the end to find out why we owe Ronstadt's family a big thank you for stocking our own kitchens. We here at Do You Remember love Linda Ronstadt and had a ton of fun putting this one together, so if you enjoy it, which we sure hope you do, please click that thumbs up icon to show your support. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a memory. But now, without further ado, let's revisit the Blue Bayou. Two worlds, one voice. Ronstadt has described herself as uncompromising in life, and we have seen what this looks like at some of her best moments. Fans were thrown for a loop when the country rock queen went the mariachi route with her album Canciones de mi Padre, or Songs of My Father, but boy was that a hit in the 1980s. And a shiny new Grammy Award for Ronstadt sealed the deal. But this wasn't just a way to try new things. This was a matter of staying in touch with something very important and keeping her sanity. Just 2 years into her career, Linda was asked by Tiger Beat what her biggest goal was, and she remembered, quote, "I said I want to become a really good Mexican singer, but it wasn't noticed or validated." Her honest, hopeful answer just got shut down.
Because you can only learn by doing, I can't... There isn't a book you can get, say, how do you learn how to be a singer in Spanish?
While chatting on the Today Show with Jane Pauley, the host danced around the inspiration behind her new album, and the entire awkward interaction stuck with Linda for years. In fact, as recently as 2020, there are interviews when Linda notes clear as day, quote, "She was trying to soften the blow of the word Mexican. That's typical of what happens. Mexican Americans are always made to feel invisible." And when she told her executives, "Hey, I'm making an all-Spanish album," well, the word horrified has been used to describe their reaction. But Linda's mind was made up, and she flat out said, quote, "I had to sing those songs or I was going to die."
And as soon as I started learning the songs, they just got inside me. I wanted to record them, and I wanted to do it worse than anything I've ever wanted to do.
Can't please everyone. Making it big means losing a bit of yourself too if you don't hold on tight for 24/7, which sure does stink when you've got ideas of how you want your own career to go. Right around the time Linda began exploring new genres instead of just doing what works, rinse and repeat, she was also flat out fed up of the routine. It didn't help that her routine wasn't something she was passionate about. She admitted, quote, "I was bored with rock and roll, and I was tired of singing fast songs. I'm a ballad singer, and I like drama and nuance. This music has richer poetic images and more interesting rhythms."
I'm going to do an album of Mexican music, of traditional Mexican music. I'm kind of a traditional Mexican myself,
In fact, she was so tired of that old formula that she called this time of very steady work, quote, "the bleak years when I was just grinding it out." And, well, the numbers happened to be on her side when her new music hit the shelves and airwaves, but by then, everyone had an idea of who they thought Linda Ronstadt was. She was marketed as, quote, "this sexualized being, somebody else's version of me walking around with my name." But it wasn't Linda at all, she shared, quote, "It became a strange distortion. Eventually, I had to put out the complete version of who I was." But wait, not everybody wanted her to abandon all things family-friendly, because in 1971, Ronstadt played Disneyland alongside Don Henley, Glenn Frey, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner on the eve of them flying off to become the Eagles. She called this job silly and made it clear it was just because they all needed some cash. But she still had to play by their rules, and that meant a strict fashion code. Her contract with Disneyland required a bra, and also a very specific number of inches that her skirt could hang from the ground when she knelt. And that distance had to be very small. I mean, we're talking non-existent. A very cheeky Linda thought about wearing a bra on her head as a loophole, but at the end of the day, hey, money talks. So she played by their what she called silly laws from what she also called an uptight organization. There was one area Linda was also uncompromising in, and that's songwriting, or rather her refusal to do songwriting. She said, being a writer wasn't what I was. Randy Newman says he gets up and goes to his office, sits down and starts writing. That's what a writer is. I never did that. I got up in the morning and drank a cup of tea. I didn't think there was any reason for me to go grinding out my own songs when I had people like J.D. Souther and Jackson Browne and Neil Young around. The way she sees it, here's what you are, here's who I am, and I'm gonna stick to that. And it led to her releasing a best-selling, Grammy-winning album that nobody really believed in. But it also made her romantic life imitate her most melancholic of love songs. How many times has Linda Ronstadt been married? What do George Lucas, Jim Carrey, J.D. Souther, and Albert Brooks have in common? Well, they all dated Linda Ronstadt. But who's the lucky one who got to say I do with her? Well, none. It's a bit familiar for the life of a music star, lots of makeups and breakups, but where Linda differs is never getting wed in most holy matrimony. She was casual when she explained in a 2013 interview, quote, "No knack for it," adding, "You know, I think that the culture supports serial monogamy, and I think I had plenty of that. And I think I was reasonably monogamous in a serial way." She said the real heart of the matter is this: I'm not a good compromiser. I think I don't have a knack for that kind of compromise. I admire people's marriages, and I think it's a wonderful thing to have, but I don't think it's the only way to live. She also said, I was trying to sing, I was never trying to get married. And hey, that little admission actually says a ton. As Linda clarifies, quote, "I don't like to compromise. If I want a pink sofa and somebody doesn't want a pink sofa, I'm not going to go for that. I want the pink sofa." It's not just about being an independent working woman who will have that pink sofa, thank you very much. It's about music being her first love. Marriage just wasn't the priority. Music as a vehicle to express her identity was. And so we've got a full history of suitors but no grooms for Linda. And even there we see that she had no time or patience for anything different from what she wanted, namely music as top priority. Take Linda and the great actor Albert Brooks. Well, they were together and lasted for just about 2 years. But Albert knew what was up. He said, quote, "I was not a musician and she was not into what I did, but she thought I was cute."
Handsome as ever.
For a bit of time, it seemed like maybe she broke the pattern with politician Jerry Brown, but no. Actually, they both knew they were running on borrowed time. She called this breath of fresh air a relief, but quote, "Neither of us ever suffered under the delusion that we would like to share each other's lives. I would have found his life too restrictive, and he would have found mine entirely chaotic. Eventually, we went our separate ways and embraced things that resonated with us as different individuals. And there was no bad blood, the two remained friends." Now let's look at the 8 months she spent dating the master of wackiness, Jim Carrey. That was all because she was at one of his performances in LA on a mission to find someone new to open her latest show. Music didn't bind them together for long, but it sure got the ball rolling. How many children did Linda Ronstadt have? Linda was all about drawing lines in the sand, and where she drew them could be pretty surprising. Romance had to be compatible with her music career, but something had to give when it came to parenthood. And in this, Linda was ready to put music on the back burner. By the time the 90s rolled around, Linda's time belonged to her family. First came baby girl Mary Clementine Ronstadt, who Linda adopted in 1990. 4 years later, she adopted a baby boy, Carlos Ronstadt. Still not married, but ready to give them her full attention in a way she could never do with dating. She didn't want to have the glamorous music career and the joys of parenthood at the same time. And she especially didn't want her kids to become, to use her very unique term, quote, tour sausages. She planned on planting roots back in her native Tucson so that her kids could enjoy the quirky, rustic upbringing that she enjoyed, where people rode to the store on horseback. But time changed the city in a way that Linda never wanted to change herself. So back to San Francisco the trio went, her stomping ground throughout the 1980s. The environment was perfect for Linda to give her kids the same sense of pride that she had in her mixed identity. The same pride that motivated her to control her music career and wind up well rewarded for it. The only work she took at this time was for a local mariachi and Latin music festival, basically using their platform as well as her own to put a bigger spotlight on her culture. And she didn't just limit herself to music, she taught lessons around the farm, she gave health PSAs, and even dished out authentic taco recipes. Like she said, and we said, uncompromising.
I don't think my political views are very controversial. Who likes nuclear warfare?
Cooking was just as much a way for Ronstadt to express herself as music was, which is maybe ironic because Linda will be the first to tell you of her many, many talents, cooking isn't one of them. But that didn't stop her from penning a memoir all about the traditional recipes from her childhood. Tragically though, the joys and cultural companionship of eating would become one of the most important treasures Linda would lose to forces beyond her uncompromising control. How is Linda Ronstadt doing today? The recent days are much quieter for this mother of two, 11-time Grammy, 1-time Emmy Award winner. And this is the one thing that was not by Linda's stubborn, unyielding choice, or was it? That was the beginning of the end for Linda Ronstadt's career. By 2011, the powerhouse of music was retired, all thanks to progressive supranuclear palsy, or PSP for short. For those unfamiliar, it's a neurodegenerative condition that basically gradually kills certain amounts of the brain. The results can be very crippling, from difficult eye movement, cognitive troubles, imbalance, slow movement. It's symptoms that line up with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. So oftentimes it's mistaken as one of those.
Have you ever gone into a doctor and tell them you're tired? You know, the doctor is tired also. You don't want to hear about that.
Statistics show that about 6 in every 100,000 people get PSP, usually beginning in their 60s or 70s. And in 2000, Linda would have been in her early to mid 50s. And here's where it all comes back to Linda, every bit of stubbornness that she had to build up since day one to present the sensual image she wanted. Sing the ballads that she wanted, teach the culture that she wanted, and love how she wanted. Everything about her life was now affected by PSP, and after climbing to the top, Linda had to start from square one. In interviews from this new phase of her life, Linda shared, quote, "I find creative new ways to do things, and by that she means just about all things. Even that special way she connected to her culture," she admitted, quote, "Eating is hard. I've had to relearn how to eat. You could carve a new brain map if you're patient and willing to do that, but it's hard." And terribly, she also lost her other most treasured skill. Linda has family of all different beliefs, and no matter what, they could always bond through singing. But something with so much repetitive movement has for Linda become, quote, just impossible. Now, instead of serenading entire auditoriums, quote, "I just try to hum a little harmony someplace in the corner."
You said you miss singing every day?
I can sing in my brain.
You sing in your brain.
It's not quite the same.
Music buffs who might be curious, even Linda's vocals show her stubborn streak. The publication Performers says Linda's voice at its strongest is a soprano, though with an underdeveloped top extension. She used her lower range as her main rock voice, which is an operatic contralto, and her music teachers wanted her to study more classical opera techniques, but she wouldn't budge from country, folk, and pop. Let's take Blue Bayou, universally regarded as the best example of all Linda's biggest strengths as a singer. You know what made her voice so damn special? Play the clip. But hers is the family that keeps on giving, because most of our kitchens are stocked with the handiest gear thanks to the Ronstadts, who were pretty inventive fellas. Her great-grandfather was an engineer, her paternal grandfather was a pioneer businessman, and her maternal grandfather was an inventor named Lloyd Copeland. His credits aren't as numerous as Linda's, but they make up for it in their impact. Talking about her creative granddad, Linda shared, quote, "He invented a lot of stuff. He was brilliant and he was always working on something. He was so successful that he was judged to be third behind Thomas Edison in the number of useful patents he developed. His list of inventions include the electric toaster, electric stove, rubber ice tray, the microwave oven, the grease gun, and even an electric milking machine. Yeah, an underachiever, of course." Going the extra mile is something Linda Ronstadt knows a lot about, both during her career heyday and after. When dire circumstances tried to cut her off from everything she holds dear, but she just so happened to enter that grim phase of her life, armed to the teeth with a lifetime of stubbornness and determination, that were just the tool she needed to meet the challenge and hold on to everything she could. And she still has a ton of wisdom to dish out, saying, quote, "I'm not afraid of dying, I'm afraid of suffering." Linda Ronstadt went into every area of life knowing what she wanted: career, romance, parenting, and health. Time and again, circumstances wanted to tell her how she was gonna do things, but at the end of the day, she calls the shots and still beats to a different drum. So, what is your favorite Linda Ronstadt song? What surprised you most about our video? Did anyone get to see her perform live? Well, get down below and tell us anything and everything about Linda Ronstadt, because after all, we're nothing without you. If you enjoyed our walk down memory lane, please hit that thumbs up icon, it really helps our channel a ton. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel for more throwback videos like this. But most importantly, from all of us here at Do You Remember, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.